We're live on your DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 144. This is Joy News Prime. Tonight, Ghana records its highest inflation in 18 years, with the latest figures from the Statistical Service showing that consumer price inflation has hit 23.6% in April from 19.4% recorded in March year-on-year.
Prices of goods and services have gone up by 23.6% over a one-year period, specifically between April 2021 and April 2022.
We have details as labor unions say the unbearable increases in prices of goods and services cement their position that government should increase salaries by no less than the prevailing inflation rate.
Negotiations this year will be influenced by the inflation behavior, as one can put it, so that at least the worker is cushioned from some of these pressures.
Also, reduce inefficiencies if you want the public to accept your proposed upward adjustment in tariffs. That is the advice from civil society to utility companies.
We need to go into the depth of it and see that those increases would be used in such an efficient way that 5 years down the line, we are not back here again.
Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia rewards taxi driver who returned an amount of 8,000 cedis to a fishmonger who forgot it in his car.
Those band them, I don't know, like before Nippon War, Maritime Market.
Prime Business and Sport will come your way from 8 p.m. Charles, share the headlines.
Well, tonight, Ghana's umbrella body for business organizations is calling for government to institute emergency direction policies to ensure that inflation rate is low, unless, of course, this could really pose a threat to investor confidence.
If you are invested in anything that you are getting interest less than the current inflation rate, then it's not worth it. So investors will look out for countries or areas where they will get a higher rate, which is higher than the interest rate, so that their real interest rate will be positive.
And in sports, Heart of Folk have unveiled their commercial store. We'll be finding out from the club the reasons as to why they embarked on that project.
This dedicated commercial center is a demonstration of our commitment to the commercial side of the business.
We are your home of independent, fearless, credible journalism. I am Samuel Kojo. Stay for details.
Joy News Prime headline.
Now, participants at a forum organized by the PRC are asking utility companies to reduce inefficiencies if they really want the public to accept their proposed upward adjustment in tariffs. This comes on the back of proposals from the utility entities asking for various increment in their tariffs. Joy News' Raymond Aqua was there and has come through with this report.
The much-anticipated Civil Society PURC Engagement Forum on Utility Tariff came off with leading civil society activists participating to make their thoughts on the proposals known. The proposals from the utility companies have attracted wide public condemnation, with many questioning the quality of service from these utility entities. Leading the charge against the utilities at the forum was ASEP boss Ben Boachi, who asked them to stop investing in projects that will not ensure proper returns.
One, we spent $1.2 billion paying for the under-recoveries in the power sector alone. That is 3 times more than what we spend on social infrastructure, education infrastructure, roads, agriculture, and social protection. I mean, it's not sustainable for us to keep doing that. When are we going to get the roads if we are pumping up such money into the power sector inefficiencies? We buy gas from the gas operators. We infuse the price of the gas in the tariff. But the gas price doesn't come out. And the government have to find money from the budget to go and pay for the gas, because of the inefficiencies that are happening. So the power sector and the energy sector in general has become a very crucial sector for Ghana that we need to resolve as quickly as possible. In 2 years, we had wasted 14 billion Ghana cedis, addressing the power sector problems. And we are not investing that much in roads. We are not investing that much in education. We are not even able to pay free SHS.
But energy analyst Kojo believes it's time Ghanaians paid realistic tariffs to sustain the companies.
We talk about losses, technical and commercial losses. For the commercial losses, I always say that management needs to be kicked by the ass to go and collect the money because they employ people who are supposed to collect this money. But for the technical losses, you need investment to reduce it. Most of these machinery was built in the 60s and never been changed. That is why the losses are high, because electricity dissipates when the machine gets old. So you and I understand from the presentation, and that's why this public hearing was very important, for us to know what goes into it. Because yesterday people were panicking, hey, they're asking for 148. But today we are leaving here with an understanding that these are some level of necessary evils.
On his part, member of the Civil Society Platform for Oil and Gas, Kwame Jantua, agrees that some increase is warranted, but insists it should be lower than what they are asking for.
We need to go into the depth of it and see that those increases would be used in such an efficient way that 5 years down the line, we are not back here again. For me, that's where the challenge is. If we are asking for certain increases, look, we didn't talk about the automatic adjustment. They said it's now called quarterly review. If that quarterly review had been put in place continuously, it would stave some of the huge amounts that they're asking for in percentages. But what did PRC say? PRC said the board wasn't in place, certain things came in, and so for probably a year that hasn't been done. It comes to hurt the ordinary man.
While a member of the PURC, Ishmael Ejekumhine, is assuring the public their views will be considered before a decision on the tariffs is made.
If we stop to see the utilities as businesses and we treat them as social services, they will ultimately collapse and will be in a situation where they wouldn't even exist. So yes, we will take all views into account, but ultimately the numbers will have to speak for themselves, and the decision would largely be based on a combination of factors which would all be explained in the PURC's final decision.
Other forums will be held in the coming days to help inform the PURC on the next line of action to take with regards to tariff increment. Raymond Akwesh report for Joy News.
All right, so we're still talking about the Electricity Company of Ghana and more. But the Electricity Company of Ghana is asking that there should be a defined threshold for billing consumers such that anyone who consumes more than the lifeline, that's between 0 and 50 kilowatt, must be made to pay the entire kilowatt power consumed and making him pay from the 50 kilowatt upwards. Now, the company argues that should only be the preserve of the poor. This was reviewed at the PRC CSO Engagement Forum Wednesday, where the ECG mounted a strong defense of its request for a 148% increase in tariff, demanding full cost recovery. Sylvia Noshi is the General Manager for Regulatory Management at ECG.
Which now everybody in this room is enjoying, including rich and poor ones like ECG staff. So we are saying that the lifeline should be exclusively for those who require it. It should be 0 to 50. So if I can afford my bill and I'm consuming 100 kilowatts, I should not enjoy the 0 to 50. I should be billed straight away with the 100 kilowatts. We have sometimes people travel outside, not because they are consuming less than 50, but simply because perhaps there's no one in the house, and the bill that will come is going to be within that. And we say that if the lifeline customers are going to have a tariff for 0 to 50, then all other customers should be made to pay a flat rate. Currently, our non-residential customers do not enjoy the lifeline.
The engagement Wednesday, Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, wants PRC to resume quarterly review of tariffs because the gas landscape is changing. According to them, cost is rising and there's no longer free gas, hence the urgent need for review. Hamis Usif is manager in charge of gas business at GNPC, and he spoke on behalf of the CEO of GNPC.
Amount of time we were only taking free gas and nobody was paying for it. And so the sector became almost accustomed to free gas, but that should have come to an end much longer or much earlier. We have kind of allowed it to linger up to this time. We have, because we have the Jubilee gas still coming in for free. But like I said, that is ending this year, and so any opportunity we have for free gas is not going to be available anymore. And so we should be ready to pay, not only to pay for gas, but to pay for gas at the right price. And so our appeal to PRC is to take the full costs and recognize those costs. Of course, where there are excesses, those excesses should be taken out, but the actual costs should be made to stay. And in line with this, therefore, we are requesting that PURC, you've got the program to be reviewing or adjusting your tariffs quarterly, and our request is that this should be adhered to, and then to ensure that all the changes in the course of the year are reflected. We had a rather maybe unpleasant situation where since 2019 there hasn't been any change. So every year prices change. Some of them even change quarterly, but they are not reflected in the current price. So we would request that PURC please take that into account. The last thing to mention is that now the tariff that is determined by PURC, I think, is taking even more significance, because there are other government initiatives that are using that to do all kinds of things, take decisions that affect the entire sector.
Labour unions say the latest inflation figures released by the Ghana Statistical Service gives credence to their position that government must increase salaries of workers by the prevailing rate of inflation. Government is currently negotiating public sector pay with organized labor, and inflation figures have become a central pillar for labor in their calls for higher pay. We'll hear from Angel Kagbanu and the TUC shortly. But first, according to government statistician Professor Samuel Kobina Enim, year-on-year inflation for April has hit 23.6%, an 18-year high as against 19.4% recorded in March this year.
CPI for April 2022 was 156.5 relative to 126.6 recorded for the same time in April 2021. The computation of rate of inflation based on these indices, that is 156.5 for the month of April 2022 and 126.6 for the month of April 2021, leads to a year-on-year rate of inflation of 23.6. This literally means that prices of goods and services have gone up by 23.6% over a one-year period, specifically between April 2021 and April 2022. Relative to March 2022, this indicates a 4.2 percentage point inflation rate, higher than the rate that was recorded in March 2022, which stood at 19.4%. This culminates in a first quarter inflation rate of 16.3, which is about 6.2 percentage point what was recorded for the same time in the first quarter of 2021. On a month-on-month basis, that is between March 2022 and April 2022, rate of inflation was 5.1%, and again, this indicates a variation from 4.0 that was recorded on a month-on-month basis for March 2022 relative to April 2022, 5.1%. This is indicating a 1.1 percentage difference. This literally means that on a month-on-month basis, that is between March and April 2022, prices of goods and services have gone up by 5.1%. We do disaggregations at the higher level, specifically the food and non-food inflation, and also from a locally produced items and an imported item perspective. We see that we've sustained the variation between food and non-food inflation for both March and April 2022, which stood at about 5.3%. Specifically, food inflation for April 2022 was 26.6% relative to non-food inflation 21.3%.
Now we can now hear from President of National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, Angel Kagbanu, who says life has become unbearable for workers and demand nothing short of the prevailing inflation rate as salary increment.
So, Mr. Kabonu, these new inflation figures show 23.6%. How will this affect negotiation with government for pay increment for workers?
Well, this is an indication that prices or the change in prices of goods and services is at all-time high. And this this April inflation is the highest in 18 years. An indication that the worker is gradually getting worse off day by day. And like we said from inception, negotiations this year will be influenced by the inflation behavior, as one can put it, because you and I are aware about the proposals made by to PURC, by the water company and the electricity company. You and I are also aware of the escalating prices of transportation announced by the Transport Organization just a fortnight ago. And of course, general price increases of other goods and services. Government's own transaction fees is gone up.
Now, I will speak shortly to Nagrat because Labour is set to make these figures a central plank in their negotiation with government. But my colleague Kweku Asante has been studying the figures and joins me live on Zoom with more. Kweku, what are the drivers for this month's figures? Kweku, kindly on mute so we can hear what you're saying. It looks like your mic is mute.
Yeah, Grace. So if you look at the data that the Ghana Statistical Service have just put out, transport is still very much in the lead, just as it was last month. It's leading with 33.5%. That is very major in terms of the data that has just come out. And so if you look at transport fares having gone up, the recent 20% that has gone up has not yet reflected in these data that has just been given to us. But it takes into consideration a 15% increase in last February to make this adjustment. But the interesting thing about this report is that household equipment, furnitures and the likes have just overtaken food as one of the major drivers of inflation. And so look at that 28.5%, the cost of some of these things in terms of the inflation figures that we have before food and other non-alcoholic beverages coming third. And so transportation is still very much in the lead, with fuel prices going up, with transportation companies increasing lorry fares, and also in terms of home equipment going up. These are the major drivers of this year's inflation figures.
All right, Kweku, I'm grateful to you. Thank you very much. Let's move on and talk to some economists on this particular subject. We've been joined by Dr. Patrick Esuming, who is an economist on Zoom. Doc, good evening and thanks very much for your time. Now, we are just hearing that something like household wares, housewares, like furniture and all of that, have bypassed food. What does this mean?
Good evening and good evening to viewers. So when you look at the release, clearly the inflation has become very entrenched. You notice that the food inflation has been leading the way. It's still overall, the food inflation is still leading the way, but you realize that in particular, imported inflation has jumped up significantly from what we recorded last month. So the inflation has become heavily entrenched, and it's unfortunately look like it's going to stay with us for a while. It's going to remain high for a while before it gets better. So it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Now, Doc, I'll come back to you for us to delve a deeper into this. But let me go back to my colleague Kweku Asante and get some figures here. Kweku, if you look at the inflation figures, how does this compare Ghana with its peers in the sub-region? All right, I'll get my colleague later. Let me go back to Dr. Esuming. Doc, so if you look at the inflation figure, we are up from the 19.4. Things are rising. What really, if you look at the price build-up, we have fuel, we have transport, we have food. Why are we having this? Is it because we are not substituting a lot of the importations or what?
So it's a lot of things. I think domestic production has been affected. I think we are witnesses to what happened last year when during the planting season, a lot of farmers started complaining about lack of fertilizers and the fact that the rains were not falling at the time that they were expecting. So, during that period, many economists would have expected that at some point it is going to feed into the inflation. So we realized that consistently food inflation has been rising. Mm-hmm. It appears that the recent, fuel prices, when the fuel prices started rising, it takes a while before it will filter into transport prices. So when it started filtering into the first round of increases that we saw was simply because fuel prices were going up, and then maybe private drivers and then transportation of food and other things will be up. But over time, when the transport owners start raising their prices, then that also brings another round of increase. So people might also argue that some of the extra money that was pumped in the economy as a result of COVID, they have been playing a role. But so you see that overall it's a lot of things. Also, we've seen it appears that the Russian-Ukraine crisis seems to be playing a role because we've seen that the imported inflation, which has consistently been below the domestic inflation on domestic items, has now shot way up. So a configuration of things, a lot of factors have come into play to ensure that the inflation is really now getting out of hand.
Don't kindly hold the line for me. I'll come back to you. But let my colleague Kweku Asante is back on the line. Kweku, how does this inflation figure compare Ghana with its peers in the sub-region?
So, Brent, if you look at the data, Ghana, we are not doing so well. It supposes that it's much difficult in terms of living standard to be in Ghana than to be elsewhere. If you look at Nigeria, the data suggests that their inflation rate in this comparable period is 15.7%. That is much closer to ours. But if you look at our neighbors in West Africa, look at Ivory Coast, they are performing some magic over there. The inflation rate is 4.5%, as against what we had here of 23.6%. Look at Burkina Faso, they are in the region of Nigeria, 15.1%, whilst Togo, our neighbors Togo, are recording 8.7%. And so the west on the continent is Sudan. The inflation is 260% over there. But that is not the country that Ghana compares themselves with usually. You look at Nigeria, you look at Togo, you look at Burkina Faso, and it seems as though the inflationary figures is overly high around here. And that is why people have raised concerns that the Ukrainian war is on. There are some still international factors. But is Ghana and Ireland, is Ghana the only country feeling this pinch? And these are some of the questions that some economists have been asking.
Kweku, I'm grateful for that. Let's return to Dr. Eshuman. Doc, if you look at the build-up, now things like furniture have bypassed food. Does it mean that we are buying more of these furniture than food? That's why the inflation is rising? Or what is accounting for that?
So, fundamentally, it's a pause between the aggregate demand for goods and services and aggregate supply for goods and services. So, generally, if the demand is rising faster, mostly that will be driven by having so much money in the system. If demand is rising faster than the supply available, that could affect the prices. On the other hand, if the production side is also, even if the demand is the same, and the production side is not bringing in as much as before, then you also see prices go up. For what we have, it appears as it's more of the supply side that is driving the inflation we have. So because freights and other things have been, a lot of the, my guess is that a lot of the furniture is imported, even the domestically produced ones. You see that fundamentally cost of production has gone up in the country. So when that happens, it's going to lead to higher prices almost everywhere. So my sense is that it's probably more driven by the supply side.
Well, but this is, the highest in 18 years. There's something fundamentally we are not doing right in terms of managing the economy. What is it?
But it's a lot of things. There are some factors that are within our control that we haven't managed very well. And there are some things that, you know, you can say you don't really control. So you talk about external factors. I mean, what I find quite not acceptable is especially the food inflation, because for a country like Ghana that has such fertile land for producing all types of different types of food, I think to see food inflation racing away the way it has been is quite alarming. It simply means that what we can do domestically to boost food production, we haven't done that. So there's that part. Obviously, we can't discount the fact that events happening around the globe in terms of the Russia crisis, and it may have played some small role, but you know, yes, those are there, but it also comes to how you manage the consequences. So you see that different countries will manage it different ways. Sometimes what you have done before those crises matters. If, for instance, the investment we had made in domestic production, especially by way of food, and also boosting up our industries, if they were doing well, we would have been in a better position to withstand more of the shocks. So clearly, I think, in particular, the food side, the management of the Planting for Food and Jobs, which is supposed to be our flagship program for addressing food security, it hasn't gone well in the last couple of weeks, in the last couple of years, and that is a big explanation for why we are seeing what we are seeing.
But can't it be the reason why, for instance, furniture has bypassed food in terms of the build-up in this inflation rate?
So I think things build up over time. So if you look at people who produce home equipment, home goods and services, there are several things. Sometimes, you know, part of their cost will be transportation, part of their cost will be raw materials like wood, part of their cost might be expenses, but also utility.
Okay.
So all of them, so sometimes they all don't come together at the same time. So, you know, they might be increasing gradually over time, but it appears that now they've all come to a head, and then the combined effect is quite substantial. But, you know, when we think about this, even though, so what we are comparing is food as a group and one particular non-food item. Because the food group taken together accounts for about 43% of the overall CPI basket. It still remains the case that if you compare all the non-food group with the food group, the food is still the biggest driver of the inflation.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Doc. We're grateful that you found time to join us. Now, still to come, Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia reward taxi driver who returned an amount of 8,000 Ghana cedis to a fishmonger who forgot it in his car.
Those been them, I don't know. Like before Nippon War, maritime markets.
Now, the National Health Insurance Authority cites a review of service charges caused by inflation for the delay in payment of arrears to service providers. The National Health Insurance Authority has denied allegations by the minority that the insurance scheme cannot fund its arrears to service providers, and neither is it collapsing. Yesterday, the ranking member on the Health Committee, Kwabena Minta Kando, said poor financial management has led to the worsening woes of the scheme and a possible collapse.
Among other things, that integration of the national ID card to the National Health Insurance Authority card is being done at no cost to the scheme, and that the scheme is going to benefit from saving made through this integration process. However, the fact remains within the 2022 National Health Insurance Fund allocation formula document that the National Health Insurance Authority is expected to pay 10.6 million Ghana cedis to the National Identification Authority for data integration. So it's not for free. What makes matters even worse is that his lies about the replacement of the National Health Insurance Authority card with Ghana card are also false. This year's allocation provides some 54.6 million for the printing of some 2.6 million National Health Insurance Authority cards at 26 Ghana cedis per one. So it is not true that we are not paying anything because of national ID cards. We cannot continue to lie our way into solving critical national problems. We cannot also continue to ignore flagrant violations of laws enacted to ensure good health care for all Ghanaians. We cannot allow the future of the scheme to be hijacked by Nado and his law-breaking finance minister. The National Health Insurance Scheme is collapsing not because of inadequate funds or inadequate legislation, but purely as a result of poor public financial management of the fund.
However, managers of the scheme indicate that delay in payment is mainly due to a review of service charges on medicines that were affected by high inflation rate, awaiting approval from the Minister of Health. Corporate Affairs Director Richard Berima Sapon joins us on the line with more details. Good evening to you and thanks for joining us. Now, why the delay? You've explained that it's because of the changes that you are doing. But what are the details in this that we hear service providers are demanding payment for arrears? What are these?
Hello, good evening, and good evening to our cherished viewers and listeners as well. The line is terribly bad, and I'm struggling to hear you. But
okay, so let me try. Did you hear me clearly now?
I think it's better now.
Okay, so why do we have delays in you paying arrears of your service providers?
Okay, so per the arrangement between service providers and the National Health Insurance Authority, service providers, after taking care of our members, have 2 months, in other words, 60 days, to prepare and submit their claim. And National Health Insurance Authority on the other side also has 90 days, in other words, 3 months to also vet, process, and pay the claim. So a delay in payment of arrears or claims may be due to a delay in these two grace periods. So if, for instance, a provider decides to exhaust, for any reason, exhaust the 60 days available to him, and NHIS, of course, because of the usual backlog, also goes through the processing and the vetting within 90 days. That in itself is about 5 months. So usually some of these things cause delay in payment of claims. As the records show now, about 25 to 30% of our providers have even submitted their claims for November, December. You have a few of them submitting January of 2022, but we are talking about 2021, November and December. In this case, NHIS will take 90 days to vet, process, and pay the claims that are yet to be submitted with regard to 2021. So you can imagine the delay that the delay in submission is causing all of us.
So you are saying that you owe your service providers till November of 2021. Is that it?
Okay, so that is the case.
Okay, so if that's the case, then where lies the justification of inflation affecting some medicines on the list?
Okay, I think we're trying to lump two different issues together.
Okay.
Delay in payment of claims is quite different from the issue of tariffs. So the issue of tariffs has got to do with how much NHIS pays for the services and medicines that providers use in taking care of our members.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the latest review will add up to about 3 or so reviews in the last 5 years that I know.
Okay.
So in our latest review of the tariff, and the final process has got to do with the approval from Minister of Health, and that is where we are.
Well, but you are citing that as one of the reasons why you've still not been able to pay your service providers. Isn't that the case?
No, that's not the understanding. So Honorable Minta Akando, raised a couple of issues, including issues with respect to the tariff of NHIS services and medicine. And according to him, there's a stagnation. So in addressing that issue, we stated that in the last 5 years, there has been a couple of reviews, and the very recent one is the one that we are talking about, that we have engaged our stakeholders, and we are at the final stage where the Minister of Health will have to approve the review or the conclusions that we have come to for the tariffs to take effect.
So if I understand you, then this is not the reason why you have not paid your service providers, right? Just to be clear.
No. This is not the reason. The reason is what I've told you. It is either there's a delay on behalf of the service providers or a delay on behalf of NHIS.
Well, you are in there, so I don't want the either. I want you to give us what's really the reason. Why have you not been able to pay your service providers?
Okay, so clearly from the records I gave you, that 25 to 30% of our providers have now submitted for November and December. It tells you there's a delay on the part of the provider.
So what it means is that it is the service providers who have not presented their records to you, and that's why you have not been able to pay.
So I said clearly 25 to 30% of them have submitted up to December. So the rest, we are urging the rest to submit it on time.
And those who have submitted, have you paid them?
The point is that we have paid up to October 2021. So if you submit your November and December as at March, it is going to take us 90 days. So from March to now, you don't have 90 days.
All right.
So within the 90 days, we'll process it and then pay the right fee that we are supposed to pay in terms of claim. So that is really the point there. But let's put a few things in perspective. The release that management has asked us to bring is just for purpose of clarity. So in the first place, the calls by Honorable Akando, who is an important stakeholder of NHIS,
let's leave it here. I'm grateful that you found time to join us here. Moving on to other stories. Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia has rewarded a taxi driver who returned an amount of 8,000 cedis to a fishmonger who forgot money in his car. Dr. Bawumia donated 20,000 to the driver, who has been identified as Isaac Akun, after a video of his act of integrity went viral. On Wednesday, social media users have been singing the praises of the driver for his honesty. In a video published by Sir Albi on Twitter, 3 women, including the victim, had embraced the taxi driver while thanking him. Isaac Akun has been speaking exclusively to Joy News.
For 7 years.
I have been a driver for the past 7 years. Initially, business was good. Due to use of smart cars now, the business has gone down. I don't even know how it happened. I picked the woman who sells fish from the Malamata market in the night to her house. I drove off immediately after she offloaded her goods and paid me. So it was around 12 a.m. on Sunday when I spotted a rag which looked like an apron. I was tempted to throw it away, but realized there was money in it. I did not get to count the money, but according to the woman, it is 8,400 Ghana cedis. It occurred to me that there are Christians and worldly people, and as a Christian, you must live your life as such. So I had to return it. If it were a worldly person, he wouldn't have, but rather spent the money anyhow. I'm shocked at how people are making donations to me. Yes, I have plans for the money received. I intend getting my own car to work with. I would also like to thank everyone for the donations they have made so far. God bless them all.
There will be also a contribution all year.
a reward for honesty. We'll take a quick break. When we come, we will return back. We'll be bringing you Showbiz here on the Prime.
Go 10. When we are done, slowly, guys, enjoy. To his eyes, enjoy this, guys. Your neck area, this side, slowly. 4. Good. That is beautiful. I like it. Sit up. Support. Don't let him pull you. Don't let him. 7 seconds. Down. Give me more. Give me more. Give me more. Work it. Come on. Take it on. Take it on. Take it on. 8, 7.
So welcome back from the break. There. It's now time for us to bring you Showbiz, and IB has joined me in the studio. Hi.
Yes, boys, how are you doing?
I'm good. I just wish we should have gone there fancy, but yeah.
It's not unfortunate, right? Yes, and it is happening in the world of showbiz, but let's backtrack a little bit. Well, actress Lydia Forson, who was on the red carpet at the VGMA, says that yes, this year has been a tremendous year for the music industry, but she would love to see the movie industry enjoy the same grace.
Yeah, I mean, I was just reminiscing and thinking about how far, Ghana music has come, and I was literally like, you know what, I want the same grace for Ghanaian movies. It's been a great year so far for Ghana music, and I was like, this is how powerful we are when we come together and believe in ourselves. Like, we have Black Sheriff trending, we have Camido trending, we have so many, Kelvin Boys, so many amazing music, and then women, don't forget, Sina So, I love Sina, Adina, everybody's doing amazing, and it's really, really lovely to see.
And just recently, the Def Jam signing for Stone Boy.
I mean, BIM Nation, BIM. I mean, we can only get higher, and I just really feel like a lot has to do with Ghanaian people, really believing in, our musicians and our artists and pushing us out there.
Well, let's keep believing in our musicians and ourselves and make sure we put ourselves out there, right?
Sure. Okay. I just hope that they do get the same grace as the music industry, because, look, we have missed our people. Majid Michelle, Lydia Forson, and all of those guys.
Well, make mention of Majid Michelle. He was also on the red carpet, and I had an interaction with him, and he is also talking about the movie industry and saying that, yes, it has taken a nosedive, but it is picking up. And if we are going to fix it, or if it's going to be fixed, we all have a part to play in it.
Imagine, what would you say has been the fate of our movie industry for the past few years, especially after the COVID?
No, it's been down, very, very down, And what makes you angry, you are responsible for it. Whatever you go out there to see that makes you angry, it's your responsibility to fix it. And we've been angry about it being down. So it's our responsibility to bring it back up. Yeah.
Well, do you think we have picked it up?
Oh yeah, and so far you realize if you observe what's going on in Silverbird Cinemas, you realize it's been a bit busy, and we're not done yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Majid.
Yes, that's Majid Michelle. And in as much as he's also talking about we all coming together to, make it work. That is what Lydia was also saying. But let's get on to the VGMA proper. And for the first time in 4 years, Kofi Kinata lost the Songwriter of the year to Fameye. Well, Fameye was in the studios of Joy 99.7, and to him, the Songwriter of the Year is like winning the Artist of the Year. He says that was what he was looking out for, and he was thankful to God that he was able to win that category.
Yeah, that particular category is just like winning the Artist of the Year for me.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because I put so much in writing my music, and for the people to appreciate that I'm a good songwriter.
Yeah.
It feels so refreshing.
Would you say that was the award that you wanted the most?
Yeah, that was the award I wanted most.
Well, that was Family. But wait, were you able to watch the VGMA?
I did.
You did?
I was.
Okay, so when the Shay came on stage, she wanted to do, a song for women. But she used a lot of swear words in there. And a lot of people in the auditorium, even where I was seated, together with Episode and all the others, they didn't like surprised that she was able to use all those swear words on stage. And people were saying, oh, but the organizers knew about it because you'll have to go through a dress rehearsal.
Okay.
Well, this morning on Daybreak Hit Show on Hit FM with Andy Dusty, the PR for Charterhouse, that is the event organizers of the VGMA, in the person of Robert Clark, actually apologized for it and said they were not in the know. So he's actually yet to watch the video to see exactly what people are talking about. Well, this is Robert Clark in the studios of Hit 103.9 talking to Andy Dusty.
It's telling the Don that when Gambo was doing this rehearsal, when he finished, did like a couple of times, and then I approached him and I told him that he should eliminate his swear words from.
There were swear words.
Yeah, his, and he worked on it.
Right.
So I didn't hear this, because obviously I would have reacted the same way. So I can understand where you're coming from, and not until you just played it for me, because I'm yet to watch all the videos. I've watched, I think, one of them. I'm yet to watch the rest. So this would have been addressed, but
where are you going? No, quite here. Go ahead.
So yeah, it's I think that this is out of place, and I will certainly let me apologize on behalf of anybody who heard this that it didn't sit well with. We'll do better the next time, and I'll certainly reach out to the Rough Town team and have a conversation with them about this.
That's
yes,
but I'm surprised to hear that they were not aware, because I am thinking that every performance should have gone through there, and they should
the
have
dress rehearsal. No, the dress
Yes.
rehearsal, everything, so you get to know what they will say.
Exactly.
But it came to them as a surprise.
Just like this guy's own Sharif's
Black
performance. That didn't know about it.
Well, an apology has been rendered to that effect too. Well, that is not all. Well, let me end with this. So in Tema, there is this investor in Tema who has been making sure that everything music, he is pumping money into it and he's investing into it. He even has an album. He is not a performer himself, but he has an album that has the likes of Miss V, R2Bs, all of them on that album. And this morning he was on the Daybreak Hit Show, which happens to be the morning show on Hit FM. And he was telling Andy Dusty that if you're a musician and you want to have success, breakthrough in what you do, consistency is the only thing that you have to get used to.
Some good money out of this?
Oh, it's worth it. It's worth it, why not? You're not looking now, you're looking for the longevity,
because you have to pay all of these artists, you have to pay the directors, you are paying for promotion, radio, television, online.
You have to push it. You push it, and once it breaks, it breaks.
If it fails,
try again.
Don't you get tired sometimes?
You get tired of maybe drinking water, and sometimes
it chokes
you. You don't stop drinking. The next day you drink again. If it's your passion, then you just have to do it. If it's your work, you have to just do it. That's what I say. People just complain after their first try and fail. That means they don't really want it. If you really want it, you do it again. wherever part that you made a mistake, you come back and perfect it. No.
Do people criticize you?
Oh, that's life. If nobody criticizes you, then you're no human.
Okay, what do they say?
I don't know, but they say behind my back.
I mean, I like this guy.
Why you like it? Because he's pushing money into the music industry?
We need to support the creatives. Look, I know of very talented young people, but for the lack of money, they are not where they have to be.
Okay.
So for someone like that...
I concur with you because I believe that there's a space where we need a lot of people, we need a lot of young talent, and we need to spend a lot of money to be able to recoup because it is a high-paying venture.
Sure.
Yes, and if money is spent well, we're going to get a lot of money.
Look at how Black Sherry's life has been changed through music. And that's how we call it a wrap here on Joy News Prime. There's more on myjoyonline.com. My name is Samuel Kojo Brace. Prime Business is up next year.